Your backlog is not bad because of Azure DevOps. Most of the time, it is bad because the requirement was messy before it became a backlog item. A vague paragraph turns into vague stories, duplicate tasks, weak acceptance criteria, and release notes nobody trusts. In this tutorial, we are building an AI backlog agent workflow for Azure DevOps. The agent takes one messy requirement and turns it into an epic, features, user stories, acceptance criteria, tasks, dependencies, definition of done, and release notes. But we are not blindly pushing AI output into Azure DevOps. We are designing a structured, reviewable workflow where humans approve the backlog before anything becomes official. Here is the sample requirement. We need a guest registration flow with approval, QR code generation, email notifications, and admin dashboard reporting. That sentence has enough business intent to start, but it is not a backlog yet. It hides several features: registration form, approval workflow, QR code generation, email notifications, and admin reporting. It also hides roles, edge cases, dependencies, and done criteria. The agent job is to unpack the requirement into a structure a delivery team can review. The human job is to challenge it, remove noise, add missing constraints, and decide what actually belongs in the next increment. Before we prompt the agent, define the terms. An epic is a large business capability, like guest registration management. A feature is a major slice of that capability, like approval workflow or email notifications. A user story describes value from a user perspective, like, as an event admin, I want to approve or reject guest registrations so that only verified guests receive access. Tasks describe implementation work, like create registration API or build approval UI. Acceptance criteria define how we know the story works. Release notes explain what changed in language stakeholders can understand. If the agent mixes these levels, the backlog becomes noisy fast. A good backlog prompt is specific about structure and constraints. Do not ask the model to write some user stories. Ask it to return JSON only using a schema you control. Tell it to preserve traceability to the original requirement. Tell it to limit the number of stories to the smallest useful set. Require acceptance criteria in a consistent given, when, then style. Require tasks, dependencies, definition of done, risks, and release notes. Also tell the agent what not to do. Do not invent compliance requirements. Do not create production credentials. Do not create Azure DevOps work items automatically. First, produce a draft for human review. The schema is the contract between the AI output and your delivery process. At the top level, we want an epic, features, stories, dependencies, definition of done, risks, and release notes. Each story should include a title, role, goal, benefit, acceptance criteria, tasks, priority, and source trace. The source trace can point back to the sentence or phrase in the original requirement that justified the item. This is important. Without traceability, the agent can quietly invent scope. With traceability, reviewers can ask, where did this story come from? If there is no source, it either needs justification or it should be removed. For our sample requirement, the agent should produce an epic called Guest Registration Management. The features are registration form, approval workflow, QR code generation, email notifications, and admin reporting. A good user story might be, as an event admin, I want to approve or reject guest registrations so that only verified guests receive access. Acceptance criteria could say, given a submitted registration, when the admin approves it, then the guest receives a QR code by email. Tasks could include create registration API, build approval UI, add QR code service, create email template, and add audit logging. Notice the scope is clear, but still reviewable. The first version should be manual. Paste the generated backlog into a review document or planning session. Remove duplicates. Merge small stories that do not deliver standalone value. Split oversized stories. Clarify vague acceptance criteria. Check whether tasks are real implementation tasks or just restated features. Confirm priorities with the product owner. Only after the team trusts the structure should you consider creating Azure DevOps work items automatically. This is the governance step that keeps an AI backlog agent from creating junk faster than humans can clean it. The mapping depends on your Azure DevOps process template, but the common pattern is epic to feature to user story to task. The epic becomes the parent capability. Features become children of the epic. User stories become children of the relevant feature. Tasks become children of stories. You can add tags like AI generated, needs review, guest registration, or source requirement. You can map acceptance criteria into the story description or a dedicated field if your process supports it. Dependencies can become links or a dependency section in the description. The important part is consistency. If the mapping changes every run, the backlog becomes hard to query and report on. Azure DevOps work items can be created through the Work Item Tracking REST API. The create endpoint uses the organization, project, and work item type in the URL, and the request body is JSON patch. That means you add fields like system title and system description through patch operations. Creating work items requires write permissions, so treat it as a controlled integration, not a quick demo trick. In production, use a service identity with the least permissions needed, store credentials securely, log every created item, and support a dry run mode. I strongly recommend starting with dry run output. Show exactly what would be created before you call the API. If you automate creation, hierarchy matters. Create the parent item first, store its returned id, then create children and link them to the parent. Repeat that pattern from epic to feature, feature to story, and story to task. If a request fails halfway through, your script should not blindly retry and create duplicates. Store a run id, a source hash, or an external correlation id so you can detect what was already created. Unlinked work items are one of the fastest ways to make Azure boards messy. The agent should generate structure, and the integration should preserve that structure. Common issues are predictable. The agent creates too many stories because it thinks more output is more helpful. Acceptance criteria become vague because the requirement was vague. Tasks duplicate each other. The hierarchy is wrong. Definition of done is missing. Dependencies are not mapped. Titles are long and inconsistent. Release notes sound like marketing copy instead of delivery notes. The fix is not a bigger prompt only. The fix is a workflow. Schema, examples, validation, human review, dry run, and controlled creation. Also keep the original requirement attached to the generated backlog. Traceability is what lets reviewers decide whether an item is legitimate scope or model invention. To recap, an AI backlog agent can turn messy requirements into a structured draft backlog. The useful flow is messy input, controlled prompt, JSON schema, generated epic, features, stories, acceptance criteria, tasks, dependencies, and release notes. Then human review. Then Azure DevOps mapping. Then dry run. Then, only if approved, work item creation through the REST API. This workflow is valuable because it speeds up analysis without pretending the model is the product owner, business analyst, architect, and delivery manager all at once. The agent drafts. The team owns the backlog.